In a small, forgotten town, a boy named Lucas found an old, leather-bound book in the attic of his grandmother's house. The cover was blank, but as he opened it, he saw words begin to appear on the pages, writing themselves in a dark, crimson ink. The words told a story of a boy who found a mysterious book just like Lucas. The boy in the story started reading aloud, and as he did, strange things began to happen. Shadows lengthened, whispering voices filled the room, and the temperature plummeted. Lucas, intrigued and frightened, continued to read until he reached the final page, which bore a warning. Once read, your soul is fed. The room grew colder, and Lucas felt a chill grip his heart. He tried to close the book, but his hands wouldn't move. The shadows around him came to life, wrapping around his body, pulling him into the darkness. The last thing he saw before the blackness consumed him was his reflection in a nearby mirror. His eyes wide with terror, lips frozen in a silent scream. And then, the attic was silent again. The book fell shut, waiting for its next reader.
At midnight, the old house on the edge of town was silent, except for the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Julia had just moved in and, despite the rumors, was determined to make the place her own. She was alone, having left her friends outside for a final drink before closing the door behind them. The moonlight cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the air felt unnaturally cold. As she began unpacking, Julia heard a faint whispering from the attic. It was barely audible, but she couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching her. She brushed it off as her imagination and continued her work. Hours passed, and the whispering grew louder, more urgent. She decided to investigate, feeling a shiver run down her spine. Julia grabbed a flashlight and made her way up the creaky stairs. The attic was cluttered with old furniture covered in dusty sheets. The whispering was now a low, mournful wail. Her flashlight flickered, revealing strange old portraits on the walls, their eyes seeming to follow her every move. She noticed a door at the far end of the attic, partially ajar. Pushing the door open, Julia was met with a musty, damp smell. The room beyond was small and empty, except for an old, ornate mirror in the center. The mirror's surface was covered in a thick layer of dust, but Julia could just make out a reflection that wasn't her own. Behind her, a shadowy figure stood, its eyes hollow and dark. Julia spun around, but the attic was empty. When she turned back to the mirror, the figure was closer, its face twisted in a grotesque smile. Panic surged through her. She grabbed the mirror and tried to throw it, but it was as if it were glued to the floor. The whispering grew deafening, and the figure in the mirror reached out a hand, its long, bony fingers pressing against the glass. Julia's heart raced. She stumbled backward, knocking over a stack of boxes. The mirror shattered, and the figure let out a blood-curdling scream. Julia ran down the stairs, her breath coming in ragged gasps. As she reached the front door, she glanced back one last time. The shattered pieces of the mirror lay scattered across the attic floor, but the shadowy figure was nowhere to be seen. The next morning, Julia's friends arrived to check on her, but the house was eerily quiet. They found her belongings strewn about and the attic door ajar, but Julia was gone. All that remained was a single shard of the mirror on the floor, with an image of Julia's terrified face reflected in it, frozen in a final silent scream.
In the dead of night, Sarah woke to the sound of her phone buzzing. Groggy, she reached over to see a single text from an unknown number. Look outside. Her heart skipped a beat as she glanced at the clock, 3 a.m. Nervously, she peeked out the window, seeing nothing but darkness. She sighed in relief, thinking it was a prank, and turned back to bed. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a photo attached. The image showed her standing by the window just moments ago. Her blood ran cold as another text arrived. I'm inside now. Before she could react, she heard the creak of a floorboard behind her. She slowly turned around, her breath caught in her throat. The last thing she saw was the shadowed figure standing inches away, a twisted smile visible in the dark. Then the screen went black.